Sometimes it's best to be careful what you wish for. Abbey awakened in her usual manner, just as she had for the past 5 agonizing years. Her body lay supine, abandoned in the desolation of her solitude. Feeble rays of light penetrated the thin, gauzy curtains, casting the palest glow into her room. Abbey blinked her eyes frantically, yearning to banish the remnants of sleep that clung to her like grains of sand. A soft rap echoed from the door, and Miss Beatty cautiously poked her head inside. A warm smile graced her face, a facade she wore every morning. "Good morning, Abbey," she said, her voice as gentle as a whisper. Though it appeared as a mere question, it held the weight of command. Each morning unfolded in the same fashion, a knock of salutation followed by the plump figure of a woman in her 40s, whose duty it was to rouse Abbey from her bed, attending to her every need, bathing, dressing, and feeding her. "Morning, Miss B. Did you sleep well?" Abbey inquired, her bed gradually elevating until she was almost upright. The mechanical sounds hung softly, the mattress crinkling delicately under the pressure. After a firm, affectionate embrace, Miss Beatty hoisted Abbey into her wheelchair, securing the protective straps. Together, they traversed a spacious bathroom, designed to cater to Abbey's specific requirements. "I did. I had that same dream again," Miss Beatty chuckled. "One of these days, I just know Ryan Reynolds will forsake that Blake girl for me. It must be fate, don't you think?" She winked mischievously, fastening the wheelchair's wheels beside a specialized bath chair. The shower room boasted a comfortable chair equipped with a hydraulic lift, accommodating Abbey for both baths and open showers. Abbey found solace in the bath, even though she couldn't truly sense the water caressing her limbs. They appeared to move, however, and the warmth enveloped her just above her neck, where her reawakening nerves began to send faint signals. Yet today was different. It was Wednesday, the day of her painting class. Miss Beatty diligently cleansed, dried, and dressed Abbey, her mind already set on the day's artistic endeavors. Once safely situated in her wheelchair, they embarked on a leisurely conversation as Abbey's sheets and blankets were replaced. She still blushed occasionally at the sight of the thick pads that cushioned her cheeks, but there was nothing to be done. She had relinquished control over those functions as well. In truth, Abbey controlled very little. Nevertheless, she exerted herself to make the best of her circumstances. Her wheelchair obeyed her oral commands, and her keyboard responded to her gaze and voice. She filled her desolate days with paintings and written tales, striving to chase away the persistent loneliness. Miss Beatty was one of the 3 nurses entrusted with Abbey's care. Additionally, a cook and driver attended to her needs. Despite her handicap, Abbey understood that many considered her fortunate, and when she plumbed the depths of despair, she endeavored to remind herself of this fact. Naturally, it was not always an easy task. Of late, however, the struggle to maintain this perspective has grown increasingly arduous. Remembering her fortune became an uphill battle, fraught with darkness. She contemplated her mother, Trina Arco, a graceful ballerina, now residing in Dubai. Trina, a Prussian tigress of remarkable beauty nearing the age of 50, remained the object of her father Hans's unyielding love and adoration. Sure, Abbey knew her parents loved her, but it always seemed as if she had merely inherited half of her father's affection. Perhaps that's why he abandoned her in Brussels, left her in the care of devoted and skilled servants who entertained her every whim. Yet she yearned for her father's presence. He was a rotund man, tall and jolly, perpetually brimming with optimism and wit. "Where is your mind wandering today, Miss Abbey?" Miss Beatty queried, steering her down the marbled hallway toward the dining room. Abbey released a sigh, unsure of the sudden weight that pressed upon her weary soul. "Oh, I suppose my thoughts are adrift among the clouds. Perhaps I should paint the sky today, in sync with my mood," she mused, a wistful grin playing upon her lips. An intoxicating aroma wafted from the table, teasing Abbey's senses. Croissants, eggs, homemade orange jam, and crispy bacon awaited her indulgence. Johnathan, the cook, had outdone himself. As Miss Beatty settled down, she prattled on about her daughter's new beau, feeding Abby small morsels of delectable sustenance. Thanks to her mother's metabolism, Abby needn't fret about gaining weight, a small mercy. Savoring each bite, she closed her eyes, a blissful smile adorning her face. The jam proved sublime. But she cherished their conversations. All Abby truly cared about at that moment was what awaited her next in life. Miss Beatty noticed her reverie and beamed broadly. "He truly is a genius," she declared. Abby nodded in agreement, often wondering if there existed a deeper connection between Johnathan and Miss Beatty. Both single now, they spent a considerable amount of time alone within the confines of the estate. Abby fervently hoped that love would find them, that someone would experience happiness and profound affection. Within her heart, a trace of bitterness seeped, an ache for the love she had missed, children, the prospect of sharing it all with someone who regarded her with the same fervor her father held for her mother. She shook her head slightly, attempting to dispel the encroaching gloom, signaling that she had consumed enough. The flavors of the food had abruptly lost their luster. Miss Beatty gently wiped her mouth and administered tea along with Abby's necessary medications. These concoctions eased the tension within her muscles, preventing unwarranted spasms. But she lacked sensation. The consequences could prove perilous. After a few minutes, Miss Beatty returned from the kitchen, her tone merry as she proclaimed, "Well, it's time for your artistic endeavors, my little Picasso." Abby nodded and manipulated her wheelchair, reversing slowly as she began her journey down the hallway toward the garden. Side by side, the odd duo exuded an inexplicable air of joy. The garden sprawled before them, boasting meandering pathways and lush, verdant trees. Abby's father held a disdain for meticulously manicured flower gardens, preferring nature in its untamed state. And Abby shared his affinity for wild, unadulterated beauty. Duncan, already present, busied himself arranging easels and colors. Upon Abby's arrival, he greeted her with a tender kiss on each cheek, causing her cheeks to flush. He was an attractive man, although Abby suspected his affections leaned toward his own gender. He positioned her easel close to her head and carefully inserted a special brush between her teeth. Nurturing her control, Abby dipped the brush into vibrant paints and commenced the arduous task of maneuvering her head, barely grazing the canvas. Duncan, ever attentive, adjusted her brush and slightly loosened her strap. This minute alteration empowered her to exert greater pressure against the canvas, granting her more control and depth of color. Amidst laughter and conversation, he imparted instructions, taking breaks to allow Abby respite and guidance. The cool morning had surrendered to a splendid spring day. Those 2 hours of instruction were the highlight of Abby's week, and a heavy sigh escaped her lips as Duncan packed away his materials. Requesting Miss Beatty to position her beneath the largest tree, Abby sought solace in the soothing shade as the sun's warmth intensified. The alarm of her phone shattered the tranquil air. "Do you wish to go inside, or should I fetch Mary to accompany you out here?" Miss Beatty inquired, her head tilting inquisitively. It was time for Abby's lunch and rest break. "I'd prefer to stay here, if it's all right. I feel a touch weary, and the shade is rather pleasant," Abby responded, her smile faint as weariness invaded her essence. Miss Beatty hesitated momentarily before offering a nod of approval. "Very well, my dear. I shall inform Mary of your whereabouts, and she will be with you shortly," she acknowledged. Abby nodded, closing her eyes, endeavoring to embrace the gentle caress of the warm breeze against her cheeks. A few moments elapsed when the sound of someone's sobbing jolted her from her tranquility. Yet all she could perceive was blinding light. Had she inadvertently moved herself into the sun's harsh embrace? Where was Mary? Panic gripped her as the light intensified, morphing into an agonizing brilliance. Sharp, searing pain surged from her eyes, coursing through her head and cascading down her neck. A man's voice, filled with desperation, called out to her. Was it Johnathan? Then, just as abruptly as the anguish had consumed her, it dissipated, leaving behind a vacant emptiness. The light subsided, leaving Abby in darkness. "Abby, Abby!" Mary's voice pierced the air, accompanied by Johnathan's desperate attempts to rouse her from her motionless state. But it was futile. The rigidity that had tormented her, contorting her limbs, had vanished, leaving behind only a lifeless doll with sightless eyes locked in a vacant stare, forever gazing at the merciless sun.